In this video, we will be creating a basic virtual tour using Pantour Pro. We will cover how to create navigation hotspots, how to create and customize hotspots, and how to add pictures. This video assumes that you have or know how to create 360-degree panoramic images. If you are looking for our tutorial on creating panoramas, look for the link in the description or browse our channel. Once the application is launched, Pantour will default to this home screen. To get started, click Create an Empty Pantour Project. This screen here has the Pantour viewer as well as the hotspot editor above and below. We'll just need to bring in some panoramic images, so you can either click and drag them in like I am doing here. Just drag and drop and then they will begin loading. Another way to bring in your panoramic images is to click on the Add Panorama button, and that will bring up a browsing dialog box that you can browse through your folders and select the panoramas. So this top window is where you do the layout. And it's just purely visual. As we move through, in a little bit here, you'll see how the different panels link to one another, and this just lets you visually organize it. This only matters for you as the editor. Some tours may be very linear and you'll want to put them all in a row. In this case, this middle first floor image I'm placing in the center will be a hub, and we will use this image to link out to all of the other panels. So this little menu here is what you use to create hotspots. In this bottom hotspot menu, we have add polygon, which is like an outline, add picture, add video, add web content. The main one that we will use is going to be just add a point. There's also some other flashier stuff like add a lens flare, add some audio. Cropping is another thing you won't use too much, and then these other two buttons are to move from the previous to the next panoramic image. So to create a hotspot that you can click on to move to another panel, we're going to click Add Point. And in this case, we want to create a link over to the Writing Assistance Center, which is right here in the panel. So we just will click. And notice that by default, it went over to this other panorama, the Done exhibit. To change the panel that it links to, come over on the right, click the drop down, and select the panoramic image that you want it to be. Notice that it has created this little arrow pointing over to the panel it goes to. These arrows will always show the direction of travel, so that clicking this hotspot takes you to that panel. You also have a view. Default target view will use the default centered view of the panel. Custom view will let you change the angle of the view when they arrive at this panorama. Custom view only works with the web version. If you try and use it in VR mode, custom view does not take effect and it uses the default target view. Source transition is a drop down to select what happens in the source panorama. So where you're standing, when you click that hotspot, what's it going to do? And so you can just select any of these. A lot of the zoom in, that's an option that I use often because it gives the impression that you are moving towards the location. So it's very good for movement towards something in the distance. The target transition, that is the transition that happens at the target panorama. So in this case, the Writing Assistance Center. And again, this just has a drop down with some options as to what will happen when you arrive, visually what will happen when you arrive in that new panoramic image. We won't use that in this tutorial. We'll just use some simple transitions from source. So as we mentioned before, these transitions are one-way tickets. So we have to make sure that we go to the target panorama and create a link back to the other central hub in this case. So we just select the Writing Assistance Center pano, click the point, and then as before, we use the drop-down to select the panoramic image that we want to transfer to when we click that hotspot. Select a transition if we like. In this case, I'm going to be using the zoom again to just create that sensation that you're moving towards something. And so now you can see that we have a hotspot linking back to our central hub, as well as one traveling to the Writing Assistance Center. And so now, real quick, I'll just go through, we'll fast forward, but I'm going to create the remainder of the hotspot links back and forth to create the rest of the tour. It's also worth mentioning that once a hotspot is created, you can click and drag it around to reposition it. Or if you create a hotspot that you don't need, you can either select it and press the delete button or right click and delete the hotspot. And so here we have our basic tour created. You can see that we've created a web of links going back and forth to each of the site areas from our central hub. In this segment, we'll cover the customization of hotspots as well as the use of a custom picture hotspot. To get to the hotspot customization workspace, you're just going to click Style in the menu bar along the top of the application. In this example, we will not create a new one. Rather, we will just customize an existing default hotspot icon. So we're going to come over to the left-hand side and select the default point style. That's what we use for the navigation hotspots. And then you can use this drop down to select an icon from the library. And you can use this to designate different types of navigation or different functions of hotspots. You can also create custom icons, but we won't cover that in this tutorial. Once you have selected an icon, you can customize the color. And so to do that, you just come over here to Custom Color, click the little color button, and then you can use HTML hex codes, RGB numbers, hue and saturation values to define the color of your icon. Or you can also use the little sliders or the color selection. In addition to customizing existing hotspots, you can also create new hotspots with your own actions. So in this case, we're going to create a polygon style spot and customize it to be able to pop up a picture. So we're going to come down and select the existing default polygon spot style. And then we're going to, in the upper right, click Duplicate. And that's going to make a copy we can work off of while maintaining the original. So we'll rename this one and we'll just call it Picture Pop-Up. This one's a little bit better than some of the default picture functions. And so here we will customize the colors and the size of the border outline and how transparent the color overlay is for this little area that we're going to outline. So if you wanted it to stand out a little more so someone might notice the area that you've outlined in the image. This is where this slider here is where you can affect the transparency. So if you want it to be a little less intrusive and they can still see the content underneath the area, you would go lower. If you want it to just cover up whatever's there, you would go higher on that bar. Another option is you can also make it so that when a mouse hovers over this area, the border and the fill color changes. So it makes it more obvious that this is an interactive area. So let's go and we'll change the border color back to that original white, so it's a little less intrusive. And then to really highlight it when you're hovering, we'll make the border change color to be blue with a thicker pixel border. So instead of 1 pixel, it'll be 4. Now, the default action for a hotspot is to go to another panorama. So we're going to change this to display an image. We won't change anything in this section because that will allow us to customize the hotspot settings when we apply it in the panorama. So now we will use the polygon picture pop-up that we just configured. And we're going to outline this little picture of a squirrel. And when you click it, it's going to pop up a quality JPEG image. So we're going to click the polygon hotspot tool. And in this editor, you can zoom in and out to make it a little easier. And then we're just going to outline the area that we want to designate as the polygon hotspot. Now, since we created a second one rather than just editing the default, we have to come up here and select it in our style. And because we didn't define a file in the hotspot customization, we now have the option to identify that when we set it in the image. And so to see what this looks like in action, I'm just going to build the tour again quick. We'll cover that later, how to do the build. And then I'm going to preview. And so now you can see that little white outline, but when I hover, I get a nice vibrant blue outline to show that it's interactive. And when I click, it's going to pop up that higher quality JPEG image that we want that's a close-up of something or a supplemental content. When you reach a point in the tour production where you need to preview the content, or when you have completed the tour and you need to generate the files to upload to a website, you will need to build the tour. To get to the build screen, you'll just go back up to our menu along the top and you'll click build. And then you will either browse or type in the folder where you want all the files to be output to. You'll give it a name. The default is to enable a flash fallback option. There are several HTML well, more than several. There are many HTML templates you can choose from. This will affect the layout and the options. You can go through and select these and build them and take a look at which one might be appropriate for your project. All the defaults for the most part are just fine. Multiple resolutions with higher JPEG quality. Many of these options you just leave at the default. You will only need to modify these if you specifically know that you need to use these options. The defaults are sufficient for the vast majority of people's projects. So once you have all the settings configured, then you will come up to Build Tour. or click the Build button. And doing a build is necessary not only for the final content, but to be able to preview your tour as you go. The initial build takes a long time because it has to generate all of the images. And then depending on the changes that you make after your initial build, subsequent builds may take significantly less time. So if you don't change any of the actual images within your project before you perform your next build, uh, the build time is very quick. If you significantly change the project by adding images or changing images before your next build, the subsequent builds will still take a long time. And so this is the end of this tutorial. We covered some very basic components of this application to get you going. You can create a very simple point-and-click tour using the skills demonstrated in this video. But if you wish to explore the application further, this application has many, many more features that we did not cover here and is actually quite powerful. So we would encourage you to stop in and explore this software. And if you have any questions or need any assistance, please reach out to us with our contact form or contact our systems librarian directly.